Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into a really cool piece of tech called the Codatta royalty engine. It's trying to tackle a massive problem at the very heart of the AI boom. How do you make sure that the people who provide all the data actually get paid fairly for it?
And really, this is the central question, isn't it? These incredible AI models are built on mountains of data, but figuring out a way to compensate every single person who contributed, well, that's a gigantic challenge. The Codatta royalty engine offers a solution built on a really powerful idea: perfect, provable fairness.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get a handle on the exact problem this thing is built to solve. Then, we'll look at the 4 key ingredients that make it all tick. After that, we'll follow the money with a real example, see how it handles real-world chaos, and finally, unpack the core promise this engine makes for a way more fair data economy. Okay, let's dive right in. You see, the goal of this system isn't just about, sending money around. It's about creating a system so consistent, so auditable, that you could run the exact same inputs through it a year from now and get the exact same results. It's all about building trust through pure, simple math.
Yeah, and this quote right here, this is basically the entire promise of the system, all boiled down into one simple equation. If the events, the ownership records, and the pricing rules are the same, the payout will always be the same. This is so important because it just gets rid of any ambiguity. It creates one single, verifiable source of truth.
So how in the world does the engine actually deliver on that big promise? Well, it all comes down to 4 key inputs. You can kind of think of them as the essential ingredients in a recipe for a fair payout.
It all starts with what are called usage events. You got to know exactly what data was used. Simple enough. Next up is the valuation config, which is just a fancy way of saying the rulebook for how to price that usage. Third, and this is absolutely critical, is the attribution snapshot. It's a perfect record of who owned what piece of data at the precise moment it was used. And finally, of course, you need the revenue account, the pot of money to be distributed. But here's the real secret sauce. Every single one of these inputs is versioned. It just means they're saved like a historical file. Version 1, version 2, and so on. That is what makes the whole thing perfectly replayable. It's a huge deal for transparency.
All right, theory is one thing, but let's make this real. Seeing how the money actually moves through the pipes is what makes it all click. So, we're going to follow a single $2 payment as it makes its way through the engine.
So, our journey begins right here, with $2. Just imagine an AI application made 1,000 data requests, and each one was priced at 0.2 of a cent. Do the math, and you land at a gross value of exactly $2. Now the fun part, where does it all go?
Okay, watch this. The first thing that happens is a tiny 5%, just 10 cents, is set aside in a reserve. We'll see why in a minute. That leaves $1.90 to be split up. From that amount, the Codatta protocol gets its fee, the developer who built the data schema gets their cut, the AI builder, the company that actually used the data, gets its margin, and the biggest piece of the pie, 60%, flows into something called the knowledge pool.
And now we zoom in on that $1.14 that went into the knowledge pool. This is where the magic happens for the actual data contributors. As you can see, their payout is based directly on their ownership share. So the original person who provided the sample gets 30%, the person who labeled it gets the biggest share at 50%, and the folks who validated the data get the last 20%.
And boom, this table just lays it all out. Crystal clear, you can follow the money from that initial $2, see the reserve get pulled out, and then track the exact splits for every single participant. The big takeaway here is that every single penny is accounted for. There are absolutely no black boxes.
Okay, so a perfect calculation on paper is great, but how does this thing handle the sheer messiness of the real world? Well, it has systems for everything: payouts, arguments, and even this really interesting model they call train now pay later. Let's see how that works. First off, it's built to be super flexible. You can get paid weekly or just whenever you hit a certain dollar amount. It can handle all sorts of different currencies, and it can even send payments across different blockchains if needed. And, you guessed it, every single payment comes with a detailed receipt, creating that unbreakable audit trail we keep talking about.
So what happens if people disagree about who owns what, or if the data was any good? Well, remember that 10-cent reserve we saw earlier? This is what it's for. While a dispute is being sorted out, those funds are held in quarantine. Once it's all resolved, the engine just reruns the numbers with the corrected information and sends the money to the right place. Nothing gets lost, it just gets recalculated correctly. It also has this really forward-thinking model called train now, pay later. This is huge because it lets new AI startups get access to incredible data without having to pay a fortune up front.
The engine just tracks what's owed and then automatically settles the bill from the app's future earnings. It's a real game changer for innovation.
So, you put all of this together. What do you get? All this incredible attention to detail, the versioning, the tracing, the recalculations. It all builds up to 4 unbreakable promises. And these are really the foundations for a totally transparent data economy. And here they are, the 4 core guarantees. First is determinism, which is a fancy way of saying it's predictable. Same inputs, same results. Always. Second, traceability, so you can follow every penny from start to finish. Third, minimal disclosure, which means it's transparent, but it's also private. You see the payout math, but the sensitive raw data stays hidden. And finally, no retroactive edits. The history can't be secretly changed. If you need to make a correction, it's a new entry, keeping the audit trail perfectly clean.
And when you get right down to it, that's the whole point. To finally move away from these mysterious black box payment systems. It's about creating a fair, explainable, and trustworthy relationship between the companies building AI and the massive global community of people providing the data that makes it all possible.
And that, right there, is the most exciting question this kind of technology leaves us with. When you have perfect trust and perfect traceability baked right into the system, what new kinds of creativity and collaboration suddenly become possible? Thanks for joining me on this explainer.